Hello? Nope. It's not Quackalope. I always do this. Hello, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co.
I'm Shira.
And this guy's just going to be quiet because he likes to do that. This is a review of Taverns and Dragons. This is Taverns and Dragons from Lord Raccoon Games. This is currently on GameFound. There's always that instinct to say Kickstarter every single time.
Oh, no. I've transferred all the way over to GameFound and Kickstarter, or if I know what it is, currently on GameFound.
Honestly, at this point, we should just start saying GameFound whether or not it's true. Either way. GameStarter. This is a game that's over on GameStarter. Not on its sister site, KickFound. And the link to the description is linked to the game is in the description down below. This is a complete glorious mess.
We also have
a for your channel.
Preview and a gameplay over on Quackalope's channel, which you can check out if you're curious about diving deeper in. We're going to be doing a full review, a 3-way review, and this is one of those controversial reviews where we're going to argue a little bit.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah. So, a short 60-second overview, no actual timer on the clock, but 60-second overview of the game. We just came off of our last gameplay, and this is a little bit of a mess of what's going on. But the general idea of the game is the king is coming to town, and across 7 rounds, you're going to be using a bit of a rondel dice placement game, where every round, each player is going to roll their 5 dice and then assign them to various places on the board. You're going to assign them to your meeples as they wander clockwise around the town, trying to gather resources, fight dragons, interact with various locations, all while just exploring the countryside and ideally bringing back food for the king. You're going to be trying to build out these recipe cards that the king is a bit of a foodie, and you're going to want to make the various recipes that he wants. You're gathering different resources in those locations. Meanwhile, you're also going to be placing your dice in the town itself to various places to get coins, to get gems, all of which will be helpful in your journey. Gems will help you fight dragons, they'll help you utilize locations. Coins will help you hire heroes that are companions that will also score you points in this game. That's basically what you're doing. Do that for 7 rounds, utilize your heroes, assign your dice, rinse and repeat until you build out your recipes and make the king happy. That is Taverns and Dragons. Anything I missed? Any high notes?
Any high notes that you missed? I mean, you went over the lore and flavor text very accurately, which is what I'm excited about. It really does feel like you're throwing out your workers into this helter-skelter chase and race. Now, one important thing when it comes to a mechanic aspect is going to be that your workers, as they collect resources, never discard those things freely. And so allocating your dice, gathering resources in a limited area, and utilizing these modular tiles in the center to take extra actions, bonus abilities, or do things like gather, collect, or fight dragons, is a major part. Along with that, we found out that tableau building from the cards that we have can play a significant role in how you utilize your dice and how you take advantage of what's on the board.
Yeah.
So,
that is basically the overview. So once again, like he said, there's a gameplay and an overview over on his channel, on Quackalope's channel. You can check those out for more information. And with that, we're going to dive straight into the review with what we liked, didn't like, and can see being a problem for others in this game. And so, sure, starting with you. What do you like about the game?
I love the artwork, and I love the theme. I mean, the board is so colorful. Each location, actually, I noticed that this mushroom location is right near the mushrooms. The coins are, I believe, near the mine. I like how thematic the board is. I like how it feels like the king is coming closer. He's walking across the drawbridge. You are preparing meals for him. You really are trying to hire the people within the town to help you out. I like the theme and the artwork a lot.
Cool. Jesse?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to reiterate what she said. It's really strong when it comes to that. For me, I also really enjoy the chaos in the puzzle. Every round, you're going to be rolling 5 dice. Those dice can come up in a range of numbers, 1 through 4. It determines turn order, but then it also determines how you're using your actions. For me, there's always an interesting puzzle when I first get that set of numbers where I thought I knew what I needed, and I try to check off, I got a 2, I got a 3. Oh no, I got a 1 and a 1. There's no 4 to be seen, or there's no 2 to be seen, or whatever it is. And I have to start figuring out how to math my way around the board, taking shortcuts, utilizing extra actions. The last round of our game, I did something that felt really good. I moved to a location, utilized that to spawn one of my workers a little bit closer, which pushed him forward, activating a tableau, letting me gather a resource to gather the last ingredient I need, which still had me 1 point. Behind you.
And for me, I lean slightly more towards yourself. I like the art. I'm with you on the art. The theme and the lore, not as much my thing. There's a story of the king coming to town. That all works.
It works great.
Give me an actual story and I'm more immersed. The general backdrop here.
If you'd like.
Not now, Jesse. Not now. But I like the art. The art's gorgeous, and I'll very much resonate with what he said, Jesse said, in the sense that you're rolling dice and you're trying to figure out the puzzle of where to assign them, how to assign them, often where to go first. If I have that 2, do I want to quickly lock in that 2 spot to get the gems? Yep. Or maybe I'm fighting for extra coins up first. Or alternatively, there's a dragon on the board, and if I can get there before somebody else, I have a chance to fight the dragon. So it's not just a math game. It's also a who gets there first and where do I think Shira is going to go on her turn and Jesse's going to go on his turn, all of that. And then another thing that we didn't really talk about, or the two of you didn't talk about, is going to be those hero abilities. I love tableau building in games, and this game gives you tableau building primarily through the use of those heroes. You're going to be hiring those companions once you start building up your money. Money's going to come from fighting dragons, from going to the mine, from going to the bank every round, and you can use that money towards hiring heroes. Heroes that will give you different abilities that you'll be able to activate a few times in the game to help you out, to remove dice from your companions, to, in your case, you had a brutal one that removed dice from your opponents, which was aggressively mean. You'll have things such as re-rolling your dice when you attack dragons, just different ways to mitigate the game, different ways to give you abilities, and as well as that, there also are the locations themselves that they don't feel necessarily as cool or as different, but like Jesse just said a second ago,
remarkably useful once you know how to use them.
At the right time with the right situation, you can combo one or two things. You can go here, gather, free up your person, move to the next spot. There are ways you can utilize those core abilities.
And they change every adjacent location, which is really nice, because when they're placed in a location, you can then go gather the resource, fight a dragon, and potentially utilize that town location as well.
And then the last thing I'll say is fighting dragons can be fun. It can have those moments. We'll get this. I'm tangenting. I'm going straight from tangenting off into the things we don't like in a second. But there are times when you're fighting the dragon and you get that perfect roll and you roll 2 dice, 3 dice, you hit 2 locations, and you get like 3 gold and 1 hunk of meat that'll be useful for a recipe. Those rolls can be fun, which brings us directly to what we don't like about this game.
And I do want to at least paint everything I say with the caveat that we're working with a prototype right now. I do know the board and rulebook has been updated and changed even since the first time we played it. Along with that, I know they're still iterating, creating more dragons, creating more tableau characters, working on the artwork. So I have critiques, but I'm going to say them through the veil of things that I'm telling the publisher I would actually like to see changed about the game before backers get a chance to play it.
Cool.
So, with that, should I say any, or do we want to swing into...
No, let's go straight to... Sure, what do you not like about the game?
What do I not like? So, one thing that I kind of like and I kind of dislike is the punchiness and meanness that can come about. Some of the cards feel really, really mean to your opponents. And while I like games, that is a mechanic that I really like. I like to be mean, I like to be punchy, and like try and steal something that the other person is getting, or like what you were saying, you look at your opponent and see what they're planning to do and kind of outsmart them, take what their location, or you know they were planning on coming here to use this, you use the 1 gem spot, they only have 1 gem, they can't use it, stuff like that. I really enjoy that mechanic. I do feel some of the cards might be a little bit overpowered in how mean they can be. If you get them really in the beginning and can use them every single time that they can refresh, it can get a bit weary of, okay, again, he's gonna take away 1 of my dice. That's a whole action. And when you only have really 5 actions per round, it feels very limiting.
Yeah, I want to catty corner off the back of that. This is actually one of the things I would really like to see adapted with the game design. I would like to see not the board interaction. I like the fact that I can cut off someone and steal a resource or take a spot where a gem's used, because it's all public information. We can all do the math, and we kind of know that they're limited resources. But the cards specifically, that isn't available to everyone unless you purchase it ahead of time, I would like to see all of the tableau cards to be all positive effects. They could have the same nature. Like, for instance, the one that I used basically gave me an additional turn above you. It debuffed everyone else by discarding a dice, and I got 1 extra dice. Well, let me just refresh and draw back a die instead of hurting you guys in the process.
So same net math, just less
same
fun
net
stuff.
math, don't hurt people, don't hurt other players with a debuff, instead give me a buff. It makes those cards more fun.
That would be more palatable, because sometimes when the card comes out and is right before your turn, and you have the exact amount of coins, no one else has even a chance to access that card. So, I like
that'd be a big request when it came to the design choices here. I want to see our tableau to be as fun as possible, because I completely agree. Even during the gameplay, when we got to that final round, I was laughing at the fact that I got to screw you over with a dice debuff, but I don't think it was actually good gameplay. Right? It was fun to screw you over. That does not make for a good game.
Screwage in games is a fascinating conversation, because like sometimes it works just fine, other times it feels like it's aggressive and mean and out of place.
It's very hard.
You know, when I'm playing Terraforming Mars and someone throws a meteor at me and gets rid of 3 plants, it doesn't really feel punishing enough in the scope and scale of things. Over here,
when I'm playing unfair, I know from the beginning that I'm trying to,
If I had the card that lets people discard an ingredient, I mean, I was the one doing it, but how punishing did that feel?
The ingredient wasn't so bad.
It was still bothersome and annoying.
It was bothersome and annoying every so often, but it wasn't as brutal as the dice. I have to say.
It wasn't as brutal as the dice.
Having been on the receiving end of both of those negative cards, by the way.
It wasn't as brutal as the dice, but even then, and then we'll move on from that point, even then I would take a card like that and maybe just draw an additional circle on it, or allow you to copy someone else's resource. Do something that buffs you, as opposed to debuffing other players.
Yeah.
Because that is a critique for me, because I think it limits how many people can enjoy this.
The other massive critique is the amount of luck needed to actually fight the dragons, which, for those of you who don't know, dragons are the only way to access really the meat, which is a crucial ingredient to most of these cards. Obviously, I'm going to start drawing some that don't need meat.
The higher scoring ones, certainly.
Most of the cards need meat to get them. Yeah. And if you are having really, really poor luck with your dice rolls, as I did during my gameplay, then it can feel really frustrating and punitive to keep not getting meat, or even when you do get meat, you get wounded so that the meat just gets kicked off your board right away. I know there are ways to get reroll tokens, but at the end of the day, you were counting, there's really only one of each symbol on the dice.
Yeah, well, it depends on which one. Like, the axe is only one of.
The odds are really not in your favor.
Yeah, and I would say it's more punishing, but that is you're also paying for the ability to roll those dice. You don't just walk up to the dragon and use a turn and roll them. You're using part of your turn, but you're also paying gems for each die that you roll, which means you're paying a resource and also very possibly not getting anything. And while, like Shira said, there is mitigation, the mitigation is not always present or easy to get your hands on. If you grab the hero, the trophy huntress, if you grab the trophy huntress as your first card of the game, sure, fighting dragons the entire game has mitigation and changes the whole story. If you don't have that, and if you don't have reroll tokens, you can say, hey, well, don't fight a dragon without reroll tokens. Sometimes it's still the best move, depending on how the board's laid out, depending on what happened, and you can just, you can fight the dragon, get 3 tokens, I can fight the dragon, and get nothing. So that definitely can happen.
So one thing that I do like in games, I like it when there are multiple pathways to win. And I'd like to, next time this comes to the table, I'd like to present a challenge. Play the game and win without getting a single meat. I want to see if that is possible by just going for these cards and by going for the recipes that don't require meat. I'm curious how much meat is necessary to win the game. Because both of you did have access to meat. I didn't get it until the very last round when I was only able to cash in on one recipe.
With us,
I was competitive, but I didn't win. And so I'm curious, how necessary it is, because I do like those alternative, I wanted to try and find the alternative pathway of not even going for fighting the dragons. I really wanted to leave that up to you guys, but I saw time after time that I couldn't get access to all these points.
So in the game's defense, I do think that there are definitely multiple pathways as to what you focus on. Whether or not you can get away with no meat, I mean, the game's called Taverns and Dragons for a reason. If you don't access the taverns at all, or if you don't access any of the dragons, if you don't use money, that you can take away any of those. I'm curious if it's possible, but I don't know if it necessarily bothers me as much.
And I think it being a lighter weight, sort of family friendly game, I
lighter
often
weight with a grain of salt. This is not that light.
Sure. But I do think it's more approachable, and I think the nature of it being a bit more approachable when it comes to the overall mechanic system does lead to less variable pathways to victory and more just direct competition. And I would venture to guess it's very, very rare and hard to win without meat.
So it's interesting because I'm going to tangent directly off of what you said to the main thing I don't like about the game, which I agree with you on the dice rolling critique of, specifically with the dragons. The other dice, most of the time, I don't have a problem with.
The others you can maneuver your way around and kind of figure out, okay, I'll take this shortcut to get around here, or I'll use the one here in the 4. You can use your dice. It's a lot more
Your tableau is supposed to be the thing that gives you control over the dragon dice, and maybe the conversation needs to be had to make those cards cheaper, but also worth less victory points. So you get an option to add more people to your tableau easier and quicker that give you mediation over your dice. Yeah.
So for my thing, though, the main thing that I think is a bit of a disconnect with me is you mentioned it's lighter, it's more approachable. I don't think it is. I think it presents as more approachable. I think this presents as a lighter family game. I also think that if I put this down in front of my kids, they'll do a lot of the stuff, but they won't get nearly as much done. And the question that the real question I have is whether they find that to be a problem or a struggle. I don't think this is that much of a gateway game. I think that this game...
I think it's a lighter gamer's game.
It's interesting, because I think the accessibility of it, you taught me the rules in, I think 8 minutes. Didn't take much time at all to get it up and running. So I think the accessibility of it, getting it up to the table, is pretty easy. But once you get into it, the sequencing and the exactness you have to, the precision you have to exact with your tableau, with your meeples, which one can move the extra space, and remembering that to assign the correct dice number to him, who can hold more, and then just your random...
This game has a decent amount of AP, a decent amount of analysis paralysis as you sit there and try to think through how you're managing all those things. And the problem is, you can't, I mean, you could if you don't want to win, but you can't just take one turn at a time. You literally have to start your entire
You get
turn
about
off
3 dice ahead.
by
and then once
figuring
someone
out.
takes away 1 dice out of the 5 that you have that you counted for.
But once you do that, you need to, it adds more to the factors. It's like, okay, great, I have 5 dice. These are the things I need to do this
4
turn.
dice now.
Now he's going to take one of them. I don't know which one he'll take. You need to kind of think through your entire turn if you want to play strategically. There's a lot of thought process going on behind what is a very easy to teach, easy to play game, but a much harder to win game. And I think that disconnect throws me off a bit. The sequencing and the general art, the general picture, the accessibility, all that makes me think it's a lighter game, but then there's actually a lot of thought behind it, which it just feels a little like a disconnect for me. Anything else we don't like? Nothing specifically?
No.
Nothing.
Did you have anything on your radar? I know we brought up points.
No, I don't necessarily disagree with a lot of your points. I kind of emphasize that my biggest complaint is going to be the nature of the tableau building and the cards. I want to see them, like I said, I want to see them changed in a way that makes it more accessible to get more of them quicker, because I think they're fun to use and they give you control over your dice. They're your core mechanic for dice mitigation. And I think that solves a lot of our problems when it comes to randomness and luck once they get balanced out. And I'd venture to guess those cards are still heavily in prototype stage. I don't know. I hope that the designer has enough good feedback coming in around those cards to really fine-tune them. And if he doesn't, I hope he listens to this at this point and starts looking at them as the biggest puzzle that needs to be solved at this moment. But I trust that it'll be solved.
It's interesting. I wonder if you two having more gameplays under your belt versus me, you knew the importance of the cards.
Absolutely.
I didn't think they were that important. And I think when you taught them, you're like, oh, they are actually just worth bonus points at the end. They have some cool abilities. I don't think it was actually stressed how crucial the tableau aspect is towards the game.
Well, it's interesting.
And I wonder if that would have changed things.
Sender strategically went for control over the board. I went for points with the cards, which does lean to how I taught you.
It does.
But I was using their abilities too, still.
Right, so I didn't think that they were that important, so I got 2, and I didn't get 1 till the very end.
Yeah. And I think part of it is also situational. Like, a lot of them have abilities that aren't necessarily that impactful, but this again goes to the nature of the game where a single small ability, like even just one character over here, the Moon Stealer over here, which swap an ingredient between any 2 minions in the same area. It's a small single ability. At most, you'll be able to do this 3 times the whole game. Does it really feel worth it? And the answer is, when it comes down to getting the right card and hurting somebody else's ability to get the right card, that can be the game. Okay. So they often have small but meaningful tweaks to the puzzle, a very constricted puzzle, and it gives you just that extra degree of flexibility that they can be worth it, especially if you get them early on. As far as what we can see others not liking. Which is always a shorter section when you have 3 people doing a review, because the others are already halfway here.
The others are sitting at the table. Well, I could see Shira not really liking the randomness. I think the biggest thing for me is actually going to reiterate your point. I think this is a accessible gamer's game. I do think it's family friendly if your family is a gaming family. And once you give your kids another 5 years, and this is now a family game for your table. At your current age group, which I think the oldest is 10 now, it's not one that you're going to be getting to the table. But I think this is a game that I pull out before or after a group is coming to sit down at my house to hang out, drink some beers, play a quick game before someone arrives. But I think the nature of it being cartoony, accessible, friendly, easy to learn, combined with a pretty punchy strategy, could make this a weird fit for some shelves.
Anything you're in?
No, I think all the points that we've mentioned.
So, I have a small few smatterings of points, none of which particularly bother me, but all worth addressing. First of all, the dragons do very much have that last to get the hit kind of thing. It's something that bothers me a lot more in some games.
It is.
It's not a huge thing for me here, but it can be a factor where it's like, okay, great, you hit the dragon, then I come in last, and I hit the dragon, and I got the victory 4 points. Which I've never loved the mechanic of last person takes the pot. The flip side, by the way, is first person has a little more flexibility where to put their dice, so that is balanced out in that sense there. So there's always instances to
also,
go
you do
last.
get rewards as you start filling it out. It's not like you only get rewards at the very end with the last punch.
There's also going to be the factor of your minions. Your minions are frequently taking wounds from the board, and that will make them harder to carry. They all have limited backpacks to begin with. As they take wounds, they can carry less and less. For me, that's part of the puzzle. For me, it's part of the management of how do I win with limited resources and whatnot. It also might just be frustrating to you walking around the board where your minions can't carry anything. Now your choice is to either be inefficient or to waste a turn being healing. None of those options are necessarily fun. You can get some heroes that might potentially help, which can help, but yeah, it might add to that frustration. A game that looks light and fun and punchy and is offering you just as many constrictions as it is abilities. And I think that primarily covers me for other things to be aware of.
I've got a major thing that I would like to see more of.
Sure.
I would really like to see more down the road places to place my dice.
Places. Oh, and like
right now we can assign them to our 3 core meeples.
Sure.
And then we have the bank for money, the gems for resource, and the cooking
recipes.
station.
Yep.
I really think about 2 more on-board locations or off-board locations to give me more puzzle around my dice and maybe give a little bit of dice mitigation by using dice specifically. For instance, a reroll section. It's an easy thing with any dice game where you pay 1 dice to reroll all 4 of yours that are remaining. Anything like that gives me a bit more board control, a bit more dice control, would be a nice addition to the nature of the puzzle here.
I almost like the idea of, like, I know they already have some variable extra locations here. I almost like the idea of some of these locations having some sort of thing where it's like, I pay a gem, and then you can also give in a die to get something else. Maybe that's where you can get your meat. If you've given this a 4 at one of these locations, you get a meat. Like having some sort of marketplace where you trade in dice. There could be things
a marketplace would be nice, a reroll, something that gave me a little bit more use for my dice, because there have been moments in this game where I haven't really used 1 or 2 of my dice.
We didn't have that problem in our game, Jesse. Because we had our dice taken away from us.
I mean, I did feel, even with us getting a dice taken away, I did feel like some of my dice placements were a little wasted. I was like, okay, I'm just going to go here and collect this. I don't need this resource for anything I'm working towards, but otherwise the die is wasted. And I've already gone here. These are all filled, and I can't push anyone out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Which brings us to ratings and final thoughts. Ratings and final thoughts. Let's start with you. Let's work our way up.
Do you go over your rating scale anymore? Or
yes, rating scale. Short version of the rating scale is going to be, we have a 1 through 5 rating scale. It's going to be 1s are bad games, 2s are games that we'd rather not play again. They're just not for us, not necessarily a bad game in general, but we'd rather not play them. 3s are good games. We're not necessarily desperately seeking them out, but we enjoy them and are happy to play them. 4s are very good games that usually have some sort of flaw that stops them from being 5s, which are the best games, the ones that we always want to play with, well, everyone.
This is a 2 for me, honestly. All the negative criticisms that I have and my experience playing it has brought it down to a 2. I do hope, though, that with some changes, it can bump up to a 3 and just be a solid good game. But for right now, it's not a game that is for me.
Sure. For myself, this is one that's a 3. And it's one that is a high 3, but it's a 3 nonetheless. This is a game that we actually, the very first time we played this game, we actually played many parts of it wrong. And there was a low 3.
I wasn't here. That's why.
It was a low 3 at the time after that first game, but that's because we didn't do a lot of the constrictions. Like, we weren't going clockwise. We had a whole bunch of things that just made the game freer and took away from it.
Of course it did.
Playing this game with all those constrictions, playing with them all the rules, playing it well the way it's supposed to be played, and again, still prototype, added a lot more to the puzzle and definitely bumped it up in terms of where it is. The problem with a 5-point rating scale is it bumped it from a low 3 to a high 3. I really do enjoy this game. I really do enjoy the puzzle. My biggest problem with it is specifically because of that contrary nature of it being a little heavier than it looks like, but also being lighter than what I think we're likely to pull out at game night, puts it at this weird spot where it's a game I'm happy to play. I don't see myself pulling it out and suggesting it as much, at least not with the people I play games. I enjoy it. It's fun. There's a lot more strategy, more than meets the eye, 100%. That's my biggest thing is not that it's too light. My biggest thing is warning you it might be too heavy for you. But it's a high 3, but still a 3 for me.
Yeah, interesting. And just in case people are curious, I do want to layer on the caveat. We did gameplay and a preview over on my channel. This is an indie publisher. We never charge indie publishers or first-time publishers for... This isn't a first time. He actually has Rum and Bone, or Last Bottle of Rum, which came out earlier. But we don't charge indie publishers for coverage over on our channel, and so neither of those are sponsored videos at all. This one really is a 4 for me. It might be a 4 with the promise of. A lot of the things that I'm asking for, I really, really am genuinely hoping and confident that they will exist in the final copy. Whether or not they all do, I'm okay with that. But there's going to be more variable locations. There's going to be more dragons. There's going to be more people that come out. There's going to be more movement on the board. And I'm excited about all that. This is a game that 100% will be on my shelf. I want to get it out and play it. I think where you're struggling with the accessibility and the complexity of it, I think right now the game groups that I have, this actually operates really well. I could see myself pulling. I don't smirk Shira because she's going to be going to somewhere else.
No, I'm just noticing your game groups overlap with like the 90% of your people. That's what I find funny. Your game group and your game group pretty much exist in the same realm nowadays.
So, I'll answer that for the way I look at it, because I'm having this problem right now with another game that I particularly enjoy and no one else in my game group seems to like, which is completely unrelated to this, but the way I approach that is I tend to approach games and keeping games with what I want to do. Practical reality over time, and whether other people around me don't want to play those games, I may get rid of it, but I always start with if I'm controlling everything that's happening, how do I perceive this?
Yeah, I enjoy this game. I enjoy the dice puzzle that's presented. I really like the restriction and the randomness. I like messy, kind of chaotic games, and while there isn't a ton of variable paths to victory, I do feel like I'm always solving a little mini puzzle when I play, and for me, that's what it has it at a solid 4. That combined with production quality, combined with artwork, combined with just a whole slew of cool things going on. It's not a 5, because there are still complaints. There are still criticisms. There is still that direct player debuff. There is Shira that really won't want to play the game with me. But I'm okay with that, right? But it's going to be resting right there. If you have watched this and the game sounds fun or interesting to you, or you go over and swing and check out the preview or the gameplay, and you think you're going to enjoy it despite our criticism, I think you really, really genuinely will. And I want to emphasize that. If you listen to the criticism and your response, like me when I watch certain videos, I was going to say shut up and sit down, and then I stumbled, and then if you've watched this and you thought to yourself, that seems like fun, I think you really will enjoy it, because I do.
Cool.
Okay?
That's basically it. That's the review of Taverns and Dragons. I almost forgot the name. I almost said the last bottle of rum. That's our review of Taverns and Dragons over on Kickfound. And until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co.
I'm Shira.
And I'm Jesse from Quackaloo.
Good, he said it. And have a good one.